Marcus Chen wiped grease-stained hands on his coveralls as the final boarding announcement echoed through Nexus Station's departure lounge. The luxury liner Stellar Crown gleamed through the massive viewport, its pristine white hull reflecting the amber glow of the binary star system. After 18 months of backbreaking work in the station's maintenance tunnels, he finally had enough credits for a first-class ticket home to Earth. The boarding queue moved slowly ahead of him. Marcus clutched his tablet, still amazed at the seat assignment: Suite 7A, with a private cabin, real food instead of protein paste, and a viewport overlooking the ship's elegant observation deck. His sister would laugh when she heard he'd splurged on luxury travel, but, after crawling through ventilation shafts and welding plasma conduits for over a year, he figured he'd earned some comfort. A commotion near the boarding gate caught his attention. Passengers stepped aside, creating a wide berth around a massive figure struggling toward the entrance. Marcus had seen many alien species during his time on Nexus Station, but this one made him catch his breath. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that shimmered between deep emerald and midnight black. Ancient scars crisscrossed its hide, and powerful limbs ended in claws that could tear through titanium plating. Most striking were its eyes, golden orbs that held depths of intelligence and something that looked like bone-deep weariness. An elder dragon. Marcus had heard stories but never imagined he'd see one in person. The Draknari were among the oldest spacefaring races, their empire spanning galaxies long before humans even discovered fire. This one moved with careful, measured steps, each breath seeming to cost great effort. Behind the dragon, a smaller reptilian figure, probably its offspring, carried what appeared to be medical equipment. The younger Draknari spoke in rapid, clicking syllables to a harried-looking station attendant. "I'm sorry, but we cannot accommodate a being of such size in standard seating," the attendant was saying, his universal translator rendering his words in flat, bureaucratic tones. "Perhaps you should consider freight passage on a cargo vessel." The elder dragon's massive head turned toward the attendant with slow dignity. When it spoke, its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I understand your limitations, small one. We shall find another way." Marcus watched as the dragon began to turn away from the gate. The creature's movements were painful to observe, each step careful and deliberate, as if motion itself caused suffering. The medical equipment his companion carried suddenly made more sense. Without fully thinking it through, Marcus stepped out of the boarding line. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice smaller than intended in the vast departure lounge. The dragon paused and turned those ancient golden eyes toward him. Up close, Marcus could see the intelligence there was matched by something else, a quiet acceptance of disappointment that spoke of too many similar encounters. "I couldn't help but over here," Marcus continued, his heart hammering against his ribs. "I have a first-class suite on this flight. It's larger than standard seating, might be big enough for you." The station attendant immediately began shaking his head. "Sir, I cannot authorize a ticket transfer of that magnitude. The insurance implications alone, what would you require in exchange?" the dragon asked quietly, ignoring the attendant entirely. Its golden gaze fixed on Marcus with uncomfortable intensity. "I will not accept charity from a stranger." Marcus thought quickly. His savings account was nearly empty after purchasing the ticket, and he'd already turned in his station quarters. But, looking at this ancient being, clearly in distress and being turned away from basic transportation, the math seemed simple. "Nothing," he said. "Just take the seat. I can manage in standard class." The younger Draknari stepped forward, speaking rapidly in their native tongue. The elder raised one clawed hand for silence, never taking its eyes off Marcus. "You do not know me, human. You do not know my species or my history. Why would you make such an offering?" Marcus shrugged, suddenly, feeling foolish under the stares of gathering passengers. "Where I come from, we look out for each other. Seems like you need that seat more than I do." For several long moments, the dragon studied him. Finally, it spoke again, its voice carrying new weight. "Very well. But I insist on compensation." It turned to its companion and spoke briefly in Draknari. The younger being reached into a carry case and produced what looked like a small crystal pendant on a metallic chain. The elder dragon took it carefully in its massive claws and extended it toward Marcus. "This is a memory crystal from my homeworld," it said. It contains knowledge of stellar navigation techniques used by my people for millennia. Perhaps it will prove useful to one who works among the stars. Marcus accepted the pendant, surprised by its warmth against his palm. That's not necessary. I was happy to help. Nevertheless, the dragon's scarred head dipped in what might have been a bow. I am Valdris Corathan, third speaker of the Draknari hegemony. I will remember this kindness. 20 minutes later, Marcus found himself squeezed into a standard economy seat between a snoring Rigelian trader and a cage of chattering Altarian tree sprites. His knees pressed against the seat in front of him, and the air recycling system carried the mingled scents of a dozen different species. But, through the small porthole beside him, he could see into the first-class observation lounge. Valdris sat in the converted suite, his massive frame actually fitting comfortably in the enlarged space. The dragon's companion had set up what was clearly medical monitoring equipment, and, for the first time since Marcus had seen him, Valdris appeared to be resting peacefully. As the stellar crown undocked from Nexus Station and began its journey toward the hyperspace jump point, Marcus fingered the crystal pendant around his neck. It felt oddly warm, and, occasionally he thought he caught glimpses of strange symbols floating in its depths. He settled back in his cramped seat and closed his eyes, telling himself that a few days of discomfort was a small price for doing the right thing. Besides, how eventful could one luxury liner trip possibly be? The answer to that question would come sooner than he expected. 3 hours into the journey, the ship's gentle hum suddenly changed pitch. Emergency lighting flickered to life along the corridor walls, bathing everything in amber warning glow. A voice crackled over the intercom system, "Attention passengers, this is Captain Morelli. We are experiencing a minor technical difficulty with our navigation systems. Please remain calm and stay in your seats while our engineering team resolves the issue." Marcus sat up straighter, his mechanics instincts immediately alert. Ships didn't have minor navigation problems in deep space, either the systems worked or they didn't. And if they didn't work while approaching a hyperspace jump, the results could be catastrophic. Around him, other passengers began murmuring nervously. The Rigelian trader woke with a snort and began checking his personal navigation device. The tree sprites chattering became more agitated. Through his porthole, Marcus could see other ships in the shipping lane beginning to alter course, giving the stellar crown a wider berth. That wasn't a good sign. The ship's intercom crackled again. Engineering teams to navigation control. All senior staff to the bridge immediately. Marcus unbuckled his safety harness. Whatever was happening, it was more than a minor technical difficulty. And if there was one thing his year and a half of station maintenance had taught him, it was that sometimes problems required creative solutions from unexpected sources. He made his way toward the front of the ship, nodding to the harried flight attendants who were too busy managing passenger concerns to question why a standard-class passenger was moving around during an emergency. The first-class section was eerily quiet compared to the nervous energy in economy. Most of the wealthy passengers seemed content to trust that their money would protect them from whatever difficulties the ship might be experiencing. Marcus found Valdris exactly where he'd left him, but now the dragon's golden eyes were open and alert. The medical equipment around him displayed readings that even Marcus could tell indicated elevated stress. "The navigation systems have failed," Valdris said without preamble as Marcus approached. "I can smell the electromagnetic disturbance from the damaged circuits." "You can smell that?" "My people have been traveling between stars for longer than your species has existed," the dragon replied. "We learned to read the signs of technological failure long before we developed instruments to measure them." Marcus looked around the first-class lounge. Through the massive observation windows, he could see the swirling colors of the hyperspace entry point growing larger ahead of them. If they couldn't correct their navigation before reaching it, the ship would either miss the jump entirely, stranding them in deep space, or enter hyperspace on the wrong vector, potentially emerging anywhere in the galaxy. Or worse, emerging nowhere at all. "How long do you think we have?" Marcus asked. Valdris consulted a chronometer on his wrist. "Perhaps 30 minutes before we reach the point of no return." The dragon's companion, who had been quietly monitoring the medical equipment, suddenly spoke up in rapid Draknari. Valdris responded in the same language, then turned back to Marcus. "My descendant reminds me that I have not always been a diplomat," the dragon said thoughtfully. Before I became third speaker, I spent several centuries as a stellar navigator for the hegemony fleet. Marcus felt a spark of hope. Could you help them fix the navigation? Perhaps. But, the bridge crew would need to accept assistance from an outsider. And, more specifically, from a Draknari. Valdris's scarred features arranged themselves into what might have been a bitter smile. Relations between our species have not always been cordial. That was putting it mildly. Marcus had heard the stories of the Draknari War, fought almost 2 centuries ago when humanity first encountered the dragon-like aliens. The conflict had lasted only a few years, but the casualties on both sides had been enormous. Peace had eventually been achieved, but trust remained fragile. What if you had a human vouching for you? Marcus asked. Valdris raised his massive head. You would do this? Even though it might put you in danger if the crew sees you as connected to whatever outcome follows? Marcus thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. We're all in danger if this ship misses its hyperspace jump. Besides, he grinned, I'm just a mechanic. Maybe they'll listen to practical advice. The dragon studied him again with those ancient golden eyes. Very well. But, first, there is something you should know about the crystal I gave you. Marcus touched the pendant at his throat. What about it? It is not simply a repository of navigation knowledge, Valdris said slowly. It is a living crystal, attuned to the quantum fluctuations that govern hyperspace travel. In the hands of one with the proper training, it can serve as a navigation aid more precise than any mechanical instrument. I don't have any training with Draknari technology. No, Valdris agreed. But, you have something else, the intuitive understanding of mechanical systems that allowed you to keep a space station running with improvised repairs and creative solutions. And, you have something my people value above all else, the willingness to act with honor even when it costs you. The ship shuddered around them, and Marcus could feel the subtle change in the artificial gravity that meant the engines were being pushed beyond their normal parameters. Whatever the engineering team was trying, it wasn't working. What do you need me to do? Valdris struggled to his feet, his massive frame casting shadows across the observation lounge. Help me reach the bridge. And, when we get there, be prepared to trust in technology your species has never seen before. As they made their way toward the ship's command center, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if his simple act of kindness in the departure lounge was about to change far more than just their seating arrangements. The crystal pendant grew warmer against his chest, and, for just a moment, he could swear he saw something moving in its crystalline depths, patterns of light that looked almost like star maps, shifting and flowing as if responding to the ship's movement through space. Outside the observation windows, the hyperspace entry point loomed larger with each passing minute, its swirling energies both beautiful and terrifying. Whatever was about to happen, they were running out of time to figure it out. The elevator to the bridge had been designed for human proportions, which made transporting a 3-meter-tall dragon something of an engineering challenge. Valdris solved the problem by simply curling his massive frame into a position that would have been impossible for any creature with a rigid skeleton, while Marcus did his best not to think about how many safety regulations they were probably violating. Third speaker, the dragon's companion said quietly in heavily accented standard, speaking for the first time since Marcus had met them. Perhaps I should accompany you instead. The bridge crew may react poorly to seeing their passengers' panic made manifest in the form of a Draknari? Valdris completed. You are correct, THYSS. But, I am also the only one aboard this vessel with the knowledge to guide us safely through hyperspace using quantum navigation. The elevator lurched to a stop, and the doors opened to reveal the Stellar Crown's command bridge. It was smaller than Marcus had expected, dominated by a circular arrangement of control stations surrounding a central holographic display. The display currently showed their ship as a small blue dot approaching the massive, swirling vortex of the hyperspace entry point. Captain Morelli, a stern-faced woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, looked up from a heated conversation with her chief engineer. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of Valdris emerging from the elevator. What in the name of 7 hells is that doing on my bridge? She demanded. Captain, Marcus said quickly, stepping forward before anyone could draw the wrong conclusions. I'm Marcus Chen, passenger in standard class. This is Valdris Corathan, third speaker of the Draknari hegemony. We're here to help with your navigation problem. Help? The captain's laugh held no humor. Son, we've got the finest navigation equipment credits can buy, and it's all reading like garbage. The quantum resonance chambers are throwing off impossible readings, the stellar positioning system thinks we're in 3 different locations simultaneously, and our backup navigation AI just informed me that according to its calculations, we're currently flying through the core of a star. She gestured at the holographic display, where scrolling columns of data painted an increasingly dire picture. What exactly do you think a passenger and, She paused, studying Valdris with obvious suspicion, a diplomat can do about that? Before I became a diplomat, Valdris said calmly, I spent 4 centuries navigating hegemony dreadnoughts through uncharted hyperspace. And, your passenger carries technology that your species has never encountered. Marcus felt all eyes on the bridge turn toward him. I'm just a mechanic, he said. But, he's right about the technology. He pulled the crystal pendant from beneath his coveralls, holding it up so the bridge lights caught its faceted surface. This is a Draknari memory crystal. Valdris says it can read quantum fluctuations in hyperspace. Chief Engineer Torres, a compact man whose uniform bore the stains of recent emergency repairs, scoffed. Captain, with respect, we don't have time for alien mysticism. We've got 17 minutes to restore navigation or we're going to overshoot the entry point completely. 18 minutes and 34 seconds, Valdris corrected quietly. And if you overshoot, your ship will need to loop back toward the entry point, adding approximately 6 hours to your journey. Your fuel reserves will not support the additional burn time required. Captain Morelli stared at the dragon. How could you possibly know our fuel status? Because I can hear your engines straining against their normal operational parameters, Valdris replied. The harmonic frequency changed when your navigation systems failed, forcing your pilot to rely on manual course corrections. Each correction requires additional thrust to maintain proper approach velocity. Torres checked his readings, then looked up with surprise. He's right, Captain. We're burning fuel at 180% of normal consumption. Which means, Valdris continued, that even if you successfully navigate the hyperspace jump, you will not have sufficient fuel to complete your journey to Earth. Your ship will emerge from hyperspace approximately 16 hours from your destination, in an area of space with no refueling stations. The bridge fell silent except for the increasingly urgent beeping of warning alarms. Marcus could see the conflict playing out on Captain Morelli's face, the trained suspicion of dealing with an alien species humanity had once warred against, balanced against the growing evidence that they needed help from any source they could find. Captain, the helmsman called out from his station, I'm reading massive gravitational fluctuations from the entry point. Whatever's wrong with our navigation, it's getting worse. Marcus looked at the holographic display and felt his stomach drop. The swirling vortex of the hyperspace entry point, which had appeared stable from a distance, was now showing clear signs of instability. Tendrils of exotic energy lashed out from its edges, and the entire structure seemed to be pulsing with irregular rhythm. That's not normal, he said. No, Valdris agreed, his golden eyes fixed on the display. Something is interfering with the quantum substrate that maintains the entry point's stability. If it collapses while we are in proximity, the gravitational shockwave will destroy this ship. Could our navigation problems be causing the instability? Captain Morelli asked. More likely the reverse, Valdris replied. Something is generating quantum interference that is affecting both your ship's systems and the hyperspace entry point itself. Torres was running scans on his instruments. Captain, I'm detecting an intermittent signal in the hyperspace frequencies. It's not matching any known technology. Show me, Valdris said. The engineer hesitated, looking to his captain for permission. Morelli nodded curtly, and Torres transferred his readings to the main display. The signal appeared as a series of pulsing waves in the electromagnetic spectrum, but unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Instead of the regular patterns typical of technological signals, this one seemed almost organic in nature, rising and falling in complex rhythms. By the eternal flame, Valdris breathed, and Marcus was startled to hear what sounded like awe in the dragon's voice. It cannot be. What? Marcus asked. What is it? That signal, Valdris said slowly, is a distress call from a hegemony deep space exploration vessel. The frequency patterns matched those used by ships that have been lost in hyperspace for. He paused, consulting his chronometer, approximately 4,000 years. The bridge erupted in voices as the implications sank in. A ship lost for 4 millennia was somehow interfering with modern hyperspace travel, potentially trapping the stellar crown in the same fate. How is that possible? Captain Morelli demanded. Ships that become lost in hyperspace do not simply disappear, Valdris explained. They become trapped in quantum loops, cycling endlessly through the space between dimensions. If one has been broadcasting a distress signal for 4,000 years, the accumulated quantum resonance could easily interfere with modern navigation systems. Can we help them? Marcus asked. Every eye on the bridge turned to stare at him. Son, Captain Morelli said, I appreciate the humanitarian impulse, but we need to focus on saving our own ship. Actually, Valdris said thoughtfully, the human may have identified the only solution to both problems. He gestured toward the main display, where the hyperspace entry point's instability was growing more pronounced by the minute. The lost ship's distress signal is creating a feedback loop that prevents the entry point from stabilizing. But, if we could locate the trapped vessel and guide it back to normal space, the interference would cease. And how exactly would we do that? Torres asked. Valdris turned to Marcus. With technology your species has never encountered, wielded by one who understands the true nature of mechanical systems. Marcus looked down at the crystal pendant in his hands. Its internal light was pulsing now, in rhythm with the alien distress signal. You want me to use this thing to navigate hyperspace? More than navigate, Valdris replied. The memory crystal can interface directly with your ship's navigation systems, but only with a compatible operator. Someone who understands how to make broken systems work again. I don't know anything about Draknari technology. But, you know how to listen to machines when they tell you what they need, Valdris said. And, you know how to find solutions that others cannot see. Captain Morelli looked between Marcus and the dragon, then, at her display showing the deteriorating situation outside. What would you need to try this? Direct access to the navigation control interface, Valdris replied. And, your trust that a former enemy can help save your ship. The captain was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical display that showed their dwindling options. Finally, she nodded. Mr. Chen, you're hereby temporarily assigned to my crew as a navigation specialist. Third speaker Corathan, you'll serve as technical advisor. But, if this goes wrong, Captain, we will all face the consequences together, Valdris said solemnly. Marcus approached the navigation station, the crystal pendant growing warmer in his hands. The ship's navigation interface was more complex than anything he'd worked with, but, underneath the sophisticated displays and quantum sensors, he could see the basic principles at work. Systems talking to each other, data flowing along carefully designed pathways, sensors reporting what they observed to processors that interpreted the information. How do I interface the crystal with your systems? He asked. Valdris guided him to a small access port near the main navigation display. Place the crystal here. But, be warned, once the connection is established, you will see space as my people see it. The experience can be overwhelming for those not prepared. Marcus positioned the crystal over the access port. The moment it made contact, the bridge around him seemed to explode into light. Suddenly, he could see beyond the physical ship, beyond the normal 3 dimensions of space. The hyperspace entry point wasn't just a swirling vortex, it was a living thing, breathing with the rhythm of cosmic forces, connected to thousands of similar structures across the galaxy by threads of quantum energy. And, trapped in the spaces between those threads, he could see it, a ship unlike any human vessel, its crystalline hull reflecting light that came from no visible source. Even after 4,000 years, it was beautiful, a work of art as much as engineering. But, it was also dying, its distress signal growing weaker with each cycle through hyperspace. I can see it, Marcus whispered, his consciousness expanded far beyond his physical body. I can see the trapped ship. It's incredible. Can you reach it? Valdris asked, his voice seeming to come from very far away. Through the crystal interface, Marcus could feel the navigation systems of the stellar crown as if they were extensions of his own body. More than that, he could sense the quantum currents that flowed through hyperspace, the hidden rivers of energy that Draknari navigators had learned to read millennia ago. "I think so," he said. "But I'll need to take us into the entry point. We'll have to enter hyperspace to reach them." "Absolutely not," Captain Morelli said firmly. "Our navigation systems are still compromised. We could end up just as lost as they are." "Not with the crystal to guide us," Marcus replied, his confidence growing as he learned to use the Draknari technology. "I can see the safe paths through hyperspace. And I can see exactly where they are." He turned to look at Valdris, though his enhanced perception showed him the dragon is far more than just a physical being. Around the alien, he could see traces of ancient wisdom, scars left by centuries of difficult decisions, and something else, a deep respect for the young human who had offered kindness to a stranger. "If we do this," Marcus said, "we all go together. I won't leave anyone behind." Valdris inclined his massive head. "Spoken like a true navigator of the deep void. Very well, young human. Show us what your people can accomplish when they choose to help rather than hinder." Outside the observation windows, the hyperspace entry point pulsed with increasing instability, while somewhere in the space between dimensions, a ship that had been lost for 4,000 years continued its desperate call for aid. Marcus took a deep breath and reached for the navigation controls, the Draknari crystal singing with power against his consciousness. "All hands, prepare for hyperspace entry," Captain Morelli announced over the ship's intercom. "And may whatever gods are listening help us all." Hyperspace was nothing like the smooth, star-streaked tunnels shown in entertainment vids. Through the Draknari crystal's enhanced perception, Marcus experienced it as a vast ocean of possibility, where the normal rules of physics became gentle suggestions rather than immutable laws. The stellar crown moved through this impossible realm like a minnow swimming through liquid starlight. Around them, the quantum currents of hyperspace flowed in rivers of pure energy, carrying information and matter between distant points in the galaxy. Marcus could feel each current as if it were a road he might choose to follow, and the crystal helped him understand which paths led to safety and which led to the endless void where ships became lost forever. "Status report," Captain Morelli called out, her voice tense as the bridge instruments displayed readings that made no sense according to human understanding of physics. "We're stable," Marcus replied, his consciousness split between his physical body and the expanded awareness the crystal provided. "Following the quantum trail left by the distress signal. The lost ship is approximately 14 minutes away at our current speed." 14 minutes in which direction?" Chief Engineer Torres asked, studying his instruments with obvious frustration. "Our sensors are showing we're somehow moving in 11 different directions simultaneously." "All of them correct," Valdris said calmly from his position near the navigation station. "In hyperspace, linear concepts like direction become fluid. The important thing is not where we are going, but where we intend to arrive." Through the crystal interface, Marcus could sense the trapped Draknari vessel more clearly now. It was caught in what his expanded awareness recognized as a quantum eddy, a whirlpool in the cosmic current that had been pulling the ship deeper into hyperspace for 4,000 years. Each cycle through the eddy had weakened its hull integrity and drained more power from its systems. Worse, he could sense the life signs aboard. Faint, but definitely present. "Valdris," he said urgently, "there are still people alive on that ship." The dragon's golden eyes widened in surprise. "Impossible. No living being could survive 4 millennia in hyperspace." "I'm reading 17 life signs," Marcus insisted, the crystal's perception showing him biopatterns unlike anything in human experience. "Weak, but stable. How is that possible?" Valdris was quiet for several moments, and, when he spoke again, his voice carried a weight of ancient sorrow. "Deep sleep chambers. The ship must have been equipped for long-range exploration, with facilities to sustain crew members in suspended animation for extended periods. For 4,000 years? Draknari deep sleep technology was designed to support hibernation for up to 5,000 years, Valdris explained. But the chambers were never intended to function while trapped in hyperspace. The quantum interference will have degraded their systems significantly." Marcus could feel the truth of that statement through his connection to the crystal. The hibernation chambers were failing, their occupants slowly dying as life support systems designed for normal space struggled to function in the strange environment of hyperspace. How long do they have? He asked. Valdres consulted readings that Marcus couldn't interpret. Perhaps 6 hours. Maybe less. The stellar crown shuddered around them as they approached the quantum eddy. Through the observation windows, the normal swirling colors of hyperspace began to change, becoming darker and more turbulent. Marcus could feel the current trying to grab their ship and drag it into the same endless loop that had trapped the Draknari vessel. Fighting some serious gravitational distortion, the helmsman reported. Whatever's out there, it's big. Through the crystal's enhanced perception, Marcus could see the lost ship clearly now. The Eternal Wanderer, he somehow knew its name, was a magnificent vessel even after 4 millennia of damage. Its crystalline hull was cracked but still intact, and its elegant, flowing lines spoke of a design philosophy that valued beauty as much as function. But it was also clearly dying. Emergency lights flickered weakly along its hull, and several sections showed the telltale darkness of failed life support systems. There, Marcus said, guiding the navigation system to display what his enhanced awareness could see. Bearing 127 Mark 6, relative to our current position. On the main screen, the lost ship appeared as a ghostly outline against the swirling energies of the quantum eddy. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the stellar crown, and obviously built for extended deep space exploration. How do we get them out of the eddy? Captain Morelli asked. Carefully, Valdres replied. The quantum currents that trap them also sustain what remains of their ship's structural integrity. If we simply pull them free, the Eternal Wanderer will break apart. Marcus studied the flow patterns around the trapped vessel, his consciousness riding the quantum currents to understand their nature. The eddy wasn't random, it followed specific patterns, cycling through a series of positions that brought the ship close to normal space before pulling it back into the deep void. I can see the pattern, he said. Every 18 minutes, their orbit brings them to within 300 kilometers of the hyperspace boundary. If we time it right, we can establish a connection and guide them out during their closest approach. What kind of connection? Torres asked. Magnetic grappling fields, Marcus replied, the solution coming to him with crystal clarity. Your ship has them for emergency docking procedures. We anchor ourselves outside the eddy, wait for them to cycle close to us, then lock onto their hull and pull them free during their natural momentum toward normal space. That's insane, Torres protested. The stress on our hull would be enormous. And if we miscalculate the timing, we could get pulled into the eddy ourselves. The alternative is letting 17 people die while we watch, Marcus said firmly. Captain Morelli studied the tactical display, watching the ghostly outline of the lost ship as it followed its endless, predetermined path. How confident are you in the timing calculation? Very confident, Marcus replied. The crystal is showing me the exact flow patterns. But we'll only get one chance. If we miss the window, it'll be another 18 minutes before they cycle close again, and their life support won't last that long. And you're certain you can guide us out afterward? Marcus reached deeper into the crystal's stored knowledge, feeling the accumulated wisdom of 4 centuries of Draknari navigation flowing through his consciousness. Yes. I can see the path home. The captain looked around her bridge, meeting the eyes of each crew member. Marcus could see the conflict in her expression, the trained caution of a lifetime spent in space, balanced against the moral imperative of rescue. All right, she said finally. We do this. Mr. Chen, you have navigational control. Third speaker Corathan, I'm putting you in charge of communications with the lost ship. Everyone else, prepare for emergency maneuvers. The next few minutes passed in tense preparation. The stellar crown positioned itself at the edge of the quantum eddy, magnetic grappling systems charged and ready. Marcus could feel the ship's hull straining against the gravitational forces generated by the trapped vessel's endless orbit. Through the crystal interface, he watched the Eternal Wanderer approach its closest point to normal space. The ancient ship moved with slow grace despite its damaged state, its crystalline hull reflecting the bizarre lights of hyperspace in patterns that hurt to look at directly. 15 seconds to optimal position, Marcus reported, his enhanced awareness tracking both ships' movements with mathematical precision. Grappling systems ready, Torres confirmed. I'm receiving a response to our communications, Valdres announced, his voice carrying wonder. The ship's AI is still functional. It's been maintaining life support and broadcasting the distress signal automatically.
10 seconds.
On the main display, the outline of the lost ship grew larger as it swung toward them on its orbital path. Marcus could see individual details now: emergency hatches, sensor arrays, the elegant script of Draknari writing along the hull.
5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, mark.
The magnetic grappling fields engaged with a sound like thunder, and the stellar crown lurched as it took hold of the much larger vessel. Immediately, warning alarms began blaring as the ship's structural systems registered stress levels far beyond normal operating parameters. Hull stress at 180% of design limits, Torres reported, his voice tight with concern. Increasing power to the grappling fields, Marcus replied, feeding more energy from the ship's engines into the magnetic anchors. Through the crystal, he could feel the quantum eddy fighting to reclaim its prisoner, pulling against their rescue attempt with the force of a stellar mass object. The Eternal Wanderer began to slow its orbital motion, dragged by the stellar crown's magnetic grip toward the boundary between hyperspace and normal reality. But the process was taking too long. Marcus could see that their window of opportunity was already starting to close. "We're not going to make it," the helmsman called out.
"The eddy's pulling them back."
"Not yet," Marcus said through gritted teeth. He reached deeper into the crystal's capabilities, drawing on navigation techniques that had been old when humanity was still confined to a single planet.
Instead of simply pulling against the eddy's current, he began to redirect the stellar crown's thrust to work with the quantum flow patterns.
By adjusting their position relative to the trapped ship, he could use the eddy's own energy to help propel the Eternal Wanderer toward freedom.
"What are you doing?"
Captain Morelli demanded as her ship began moving in what appeared to be the wrong direction. "Using the current instead of fighting it," Marcus replied.
"Trust me." The maneuver was delicate beyond anything he'd ever attempted. One mistake would send both ships spiraling into the quantum eddy's depths.
But the crystal guided his actions, and his intuitive understanding of mechanical systems helped him feel when the forces were balanced correctly. Suddenly, the resistance vanished. The Eternal Wanderer shot forward out of the eddy like a cork from a bottle, carried by the very currents that had imprisoned it for 4 millennia.
"It's working!" Torres shouted.
"Both ships are clear of the distortion field." Through the crystal interface, Marcus could see the path home, a river of quantum energy that would carry them back to normal space and the shipping lanes near Earth. But first, there was something else that needed to be done.
"Valdris," he said, "can you establish direct communication with the survivors?"
The dragon was already working at the communications console, his clawed fingers moving with surprising delicacy over the control interfaces.
"I have a connection."
The hibernation chambers are responding to external signals. "Tell them they're safe," Marcus said.
"Tell them they're going home."
As the Stellar Crown and the rescued Eternal Wanderer began their journey back to normal space, Marcus felt the crystal's expanded awareness gradually fade back to human levels. The universe contracted around him until he was once again just a mechanic standing on the bridge of a passenger liner, holding an alien artifact that had just helped him navigate the spaces between stars. But something had changed. In his mind, he could still feel echoes of the vast cosmic currents that flowed through hyperspace. More than that, he could feel a new understanding of his place in the galaxy, not just as a human, but as part of something larger and more magnificent than he'd ever imagined. "Well done, young navigator," Valdris said quietly, and Marcus could hear genuine respect in the dragon's voice. "You have saved 17 lives and prevented a diplomatic incident that could have damaged relations between our peoples for generations." "I just did what needed to be done," Marcus replied.
"Same as anyone would have."
"No," Valdris said firmly.
"Not anyone.
You chose to help a stranger, and that choice led to the rescue of my people.
The Draknari hegemony will remember this debt."
Captain Morelli looked up from her status reports.
"Mr. Chen, I've been authorized to offer you a position as a navigation specialist with stellar transport.
Full benefits, officers' quarters, and a salary that would make your station maintenance work look like pocket change." Marcus looked around the bridge at the faces of the crew who had trusted him with their lives, then at the ancient dragon who had honored him with access to technology beyond human understanding. Finally, he looked at the crystal pendant still glowing softly in his hands. "I appreciate the offer, Captain," he said. But I think I need to learn a lot more about navigation before I'm ready for that kind of responsibility.
Valdris inclined his massive head. Perhaps the third speaker of the Draknari hegemony could provide such education to a promising student? Marcus grinned. I'd like that. But, first, I want to meet the people we rescued. After 4,000 years, they're probably going to have some interesting stories to tell.
Through the observation windows, normal space began to shimmer back into existence around them. Earth's sun was visible in the distance, a familiar yellow star that meant home and safety and the end of an adventure that had begun with a simple act of kindness in a departure lounge. But, for Marcus Chen, former station mechanic and newly awakened navigator of the deep void, it also meant the beginning of something far greater. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and he had been given the tools to explore them all. The crystal pendant pulsed once more against his palm, and, in its depths, he could see star maps that would guide him to places no human had ever visited. Adventure awaited, and, for the first time in his life, Marcus felt truly ready to embrace it. After all, the universe was a big place. And, sometimes, it needed mechanics who understood that the most important repairs were the ones you made to help other people.